Minister. The member for Nedlands.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Good to know I'm in good company. My assessor also had to put the brakes on in my first test. My grievance this morning, however, is to the Minister for Planning, not that assessor. I thank the Minister for taking my grievance on an issue that I appreciate is important to both of us, ensuring the accessibility of green space for our growing communities, and in particular maintaining playing fields for girls' participation in sport. If I can outline a brief history, the 8 hectares of pristine playing fields in Mount Claremont were acquired by Christchurch Grammar School in 1958 from the City of Perth. At the time of this transaction, it was represented by the school that the land was for use for playing fields. And when the land was gazetted in 1985 by the City of Perth, this use and purpose was again reinforced, with the land specifically reserved for parks and recreation. The school had in recent years identified the playing fields as being surplus to their needs and made an application to have them rezoned to a development zone and therefore have the reservation removed. On the 25th of February 2022, the Town of Cambridge councillors voted unanimously to uphold their local planning scheme and reject a scheme amendment request by Christchurch Grammar School to rezone the fields. The school has sought an intervention by you as the Minister for Planning under Section 76 of the Planning and Development Act 2005 to remove the reservation so that the playing fields can be developed. And it is on this note that I grieve to the Minister to confirm that you will take no further action, as there are no planning or community reasons for providing a Section 76 exception. The planning reasons include, firstly, that in April 2021, the WA Planning Commission confirmed that the reservation was appropriate as part of its formal acceptance and endorsement of the Town of Cambridge's local planning strategy. The Town of Cambridge is meeting its density and infill targets without needing to impinge on local reservations. The town is focused to increase density around key local centres and high-frequency transport corridors. And at no time has it been a local or a state government policy or requirement that reservations be used for densification purposes. The community reasons are both highly local and of state significance. Locally, the Friends of Mount Claremont Playing Fields, many who are here today, collected close to 5,000 signatures on a petition calling for the playing fields to be protected by ensuring they remain reserved for parks and recreation, consistent with their creation, zoning and land use for the past 60 years. People from across the generations collected and provided signatures, including Walter and Beth Pidgeon, a local resident who stood outside the Good Grocer in Claremont every day for months on end and collected signatures. The group presented this petition on the 20th of September last year to the Honourable Brad Pettit MLC. I want to thank the Friends of Mount Claremont Playing Fields for their ongoing and positive engagement in working for the fields to be protected and remain as a reservation. Community playing fields are in short supply more broadly in metropolitan WA, and government reports indicate that this shortage will increase substantially with time. This is especially the case for girls' sport, which is seeing the largest participation growth of any group, and as we know, suffers from significant historic and systemic inequality in terms of access to broadacre playing fields in sports such as AFL, soccer and cricket. As the population in the western suburbs continues to grow, as we continue to meet our targets for infill and development, so too does demand for active green space grow. I'll highlight growth at just one of our local clubs and the sport of football as an example. The Swanbourne Tigers Football Club, which is located in the city of Nedlands, has experienced an increase of more than 30% enrolment in just the past 3 years. This has put pressure on the existing facilities at Allen Park, which could not sustain this growth. Home games for the Swanbourne Tigers are now played every weekend at various fields, subject to availability. These fields include the upper park behind the Shaw House, Allen Park rugby fields, John 23rd fields, UWA Sports Ground and Scotch College playing fields. The Swanbourne Tigers only have access to the minor fields within these facilities, and so none of these locations have access to toilets, shelter, changing rooms, permanent goalposts or boundary lines, which makes game preparation more difficult and the game experience for players and spectators much less engaging. All 3 football ovals within the Mount Claremont playing fields have permanent goalposts, boundary lines, permanent shelter and toilet and change room access. I would like to particularly emphasise to the Minister the crucial issue of access to playing fields for girls in the western suburbs. We are both mothers of daughters and know that participation in sport is essential for their mental, social and physical health, while there are still barriers related to accessibility and inclusivity for girls' participation, barriers that we can help to reduce by protecting these fields. Again, looking just at AFL football as an example, when considering the female competition for ages 6 to 17 years, in the last 4 years, since 2018, female participation in the Metro North region, where the playing fields are located, has increased over 90%, with almost 2,300 female participants playing in the zone in 2022. Another 4-year comparison for Auskick shows a growth in girls' participation from 300 to 458, 53% growth. In the juniors, 528 to 952, or an 80% growth. And for youth, 369 to 878 girls and young women now playing, 138% growth. When considering the female competition for ages 18 years and over, in the last 4 years since 2018, female participation in the Perth Football League has increased almost 300%. Today, WA has more female teams in the 18+ years amateur league than the equivalent league in Victoria, which is a credit to WA, given Victoria traditionally considers itself the home for Australian rules football. Adding to this, not one of the girls' schools that participates in IGSA have their own venues suitable for those broadacre sports, including AFL, soccer and cricket. So in order to participate, the girls' schools must negotiate for time and space on council-owned ovals or with the boys' schools to allow them to play. At age 14, girls are dropping out of sport at 2 times the rate of boys, and the availability of playing space is a factor in this. Given the importance of the Mount Clermont playing fields to our local community and for girls' sport in particular, today I'm seeking reassurance from the Minister for Planning that the zoning of Mount Clermont playing fields will remain as it currently stands, that is, reserved for parks and recreation, thereby upholding the Town of Cambridge's decision to reject the rezoning application, meaning that the playing fields will continue to be active green space for the local community.
The Minister for Planning.
Thank you, and I thank the member for Nedlands for that grievance, and I also acknowledge the supporters of this grievance here in the chamber today. As you know, and as you how well you laid it out, that there was a request to myself to activate or to ask for the Town of Cambridge to rezone a particular area, the playing fields, into residential. Now, I get a lot of requests, as you would expect, from all different parts of the community on all different fronts. And as I've said on radio, I treat every proposal on their merits. So in this instance, we analysed what would be the benefit to housing, what would be the amount of housing, what is the location of the proposed housing, and then compared it to the loss of the playing fields and some of the other local amenity that would be lost, but in particular the issue of playing fields. And I'm glad the Minister for Sport and Recreation is sitting next to me, because we fully understand and acknowledge between us, and we sit here talking about the massive demand there is for playing fields in the community, and in particular in areas where, as you said, there are more people moving into that part of the world, and as increased demand exists, you've got more people moving to the area, you've got the absolute explosion of popularity of women's girls' sport. And as you said, I've got 2 girls, both very much into sport, both football and soccer, and I know, as I traverse the suburbs every weekend to watch them play, just the massive demand there is for training and for playing. And so that's a key factor in my decision, is making sure that we continue to have playing fields in particular for the growing popularity of sport more generally, but girls' sport. And this is something that didn't exist 10 years ago. We didn't have local girls playing AFL at this rate at all. Now you see it absolutely everywhere, and other outdoor sports like soccer as well, and in particular things like the World Cup this year, which will increase their popularity. So on its merits, we had a look at, as I said, what would be the benefit to housing, and we do need more housing in WA, there's no doubt about it, and we continue to support more housing. But what would be the amount of new housing, noting that this is very much surrounded by bush forever too, so the setbacks that would be required to comply with the fire and emergency the fire and emergency rules as well, would mean that the amount of housing that would be supported here wouldn't be a lot, but the loss of the playing fields would be significant. To the local community. Now, I understand what the school was trying to do and get its playing fields closer to its campus, and I understand it's a challenge, in particular for many schools in your area where you have to catch the bus, you have to go for a distance to find playing fields. I think some other schools like Trinity have the same sort of problem. So I understand the challenge they have, but more generally this would be just too big a loss for that community, and that's why I made that decision. Of course, going forward, I will probably write to the council asking what other measures there are to support those fields into the future too, in relation to the ownership of those fields. And that's the next question to be asked, is actually who manages it into the future? Are there any other mechanisms to make sure they're publicly available in the future? So they're the sort of questions, always tougher questions, about who's going to manage them into the future, what sort of shared responsibility potentially could be there, and maybe that's something we can talk about too into the future. So yeah, so it was, like I said, considered all the factors. I understand that I took both sides' point of views, read through the documents to understand exactly what was to get across all the detail, and I'm very, very happy with the decision that I made. I don't think there should be housing. I think we should retain playing fields. One of our first decisions, of course, was also to retain Subiaco Oval in its form, in its size, because there were plans before we got elected to actually change the nature of Subiaco Oval. But we do need these playing fields. We need better and I think you highlighted the lighting, change rooms, accessibility, and it's something that, as Minister for Planning, and someone that's just very much interested in sport, and the Minister for Sport and Rec have been discussing what else we can do to create more opportunities to get more playing spaces. Because while we all lament that kids don't get out to play, then we have to have an obligation to create places for them to go and play at. And things like, in particular, change rooms, particularly because of girls needing better access to change rooms. There's still a lot of change rooms, like I've seen, that I've had to take my kids in, which are just absolutely disgusting and, you know, absolutely awful, and sometimes my kids just refuse to go in there. So the types of change rooms, and in particular how that impacts on girls who want to play sport. Lighting. Lighting's always an interesting issue because there's sometimes local residents who aren't very keen on the lights, but now with the more targeted LEDs, and we can be smarter with our lighting, and as a result, having ability to train it in the evening and having it safe. Sometimes there are lights there, still doesn't actually let you see the ball. But so the better lighting, the change rooms, and the joint management of these facilities are something. As I said, Minister for Planning, Minister for Sport and Rec, we want to continue to support having these types of playing fields available to schools, to the community, supporting our younger people playing sport.
Well done.